What happens when a family with real street power raises the next generation? When your father's known as a street boss, a certified hustler who built his own record label while running the city of Memphis, and your last name carries stories of courtroom battles, federal heat, and a reputation that makes people move carefully, you get the story of the Williams family, better known as the Shiesty clan. This family wasn't just part of the game, they were the game. When their youngest son, Pooh Shiesty, started rapping about street life and survival, he wasn't making up stories, he was speaking on what he saw growing up. From his father's rise as one of Memphis's most respected figures to his fearless mother who always had his back, their legacy runs deep. Through heartbreak, the loss of close friends like T.P.P., and the pressure of cases that shook the family, this story shows how one household from the city's toughest blocks built a rap superstar who could never fully escape where he came from. Because by the end of this story, you'll see why Pooh Shiesty was shaped by his world, a world that raised him and defined his every move. This family tree's got roots deeper than any music rivalry and branches that stretch across Memphis's most intense neighborhoods. We're about to uncover the truth behind one of hip-hop's most genuine voices. And trust me, the real story is crazier than anything you've ever heard in a song. But before we jump into the Shiesty family saga, you need to understand the streets that molded them. Memphis, Tennessee, especially South Memphis, isn't just another neighborhood. This part of the city has seen some of the toughest streets in America, with crime rates far higher than most places its size. Over 100 different street groups move through a city of just 500,000 people, and it's estimated that around 14,000 residents are part of that scene. That's basically a small army spread across blocks, divided by railroad tracks that mark different territories. South Memphis, where the Williams family built their name, stretches from Midtown all the way down to the Mississippi state line. It's one of the oldest and most struggling parts of the city, where people's life expectancy can drop by 20 years just because of the area they're born in. The odds are stacked against you from day one, but that's also where legends are born. This is the same soil that gave us names like Yo Gotti, Young Dolph, and Moneybagg Yo. But for families like the Williams, survival wasn't just about music. It was about adapting, moving smart, and knowing how to play the game the right way. In Memphis, you're either making moves or getting left behind, and the Shiesty family made their choice early on. The city's location sits right at the center of Tennessee, Arkansas, and Mississippi, a crossroads for everything that moves through the South. The I-55 corridor slices straight through Memphis, linking Chicago to New Orleans, and that made it a major route for commerce and hustle of all kinds. Memphis has its own unique street culture. Unlike cities where one or two groups run everything, Memphis is home to just about every major crew you can name. Bloods, Crips, Gangster Disciples, plus countless neighborhood teams that run independently. This mix creates a wild and unpredictable scene where alliances shift fast and someone who's your ally today could be your rival tomorrow. Trail Williams Sr., the man who'd later be known as Mob Boss, was already making serious moves in South Memphis when he met the woman who'd become Shiesty's mother. Both came up in the same rough environment where loyalty meant everything and showing weakness could cost you your place. They weren't just surviving, they were strategizing. Back in the late 1990s, Memphis was a whole different world. The city was still dealing with the aftershocks of the crack era, and young hustlers like Mob Boss were learning fast that street money could either lift you up or take you out, sometimes both. But he wasn't just another guy chasing fast cash. He had real vision. While others focused on quick wins and street status, Mob Boss was already planning something bigger, something that could last. He understood a lesson many never do, that real power comes from turning street smarts into legitimate business. That's when he launched Mob Ties Records, his own independent label. He saw music as more than a hustle. It was his ticket to a new kind of respect. When he met Ty's mother, she wasn't some clueless girl who got swept up in a flashy lifestyle. She already knew how the streets worked. She understood the rules, the risks, and what it took to stay standing when life got rough. Their connection wasn't about fancy dates or sweet talk. It was built on mutual respect, trust, and the understanding that survival meant moving smart together. The couple settled in the Cane Creek projects, right in the heart of South Memphis. This wasn't any picture-perfect romance. It was two fighters trying to build something real in one of the toughest environments in the city. Every day came with pressure. Investigations, rival crews trying to move in, and the constant stress of keeping their world intact while the odds were stacked against them. What made their bond powerful was their shared vision for family and legacy. They both saw the streets as just one step on a bigger journey, not the destination. They wanted to create something solid, something that would provide for their kids and generations after them, even if life threw curveballs their way. That mindset is what set them apart from everyone else around them. To really understand Pooh Shiesty, you gotta understand his father. Mob Boss wasn't putting on an act or chasing an image. His reputation was real. His whole operation ran so smoothly that investigators had to watch for months just to piece together how deep it all went. He had connections that stretched from the Mississippi Delta all the way to the Arkansas border, using the I-55 interstate like it was his own personal business route. His network included trusted truck drivers who could move goods across state lines, insiders who gave early warnings about law enforcement activity, and loyal crew members who kept everything running smoothly. Mob Boss ran his operation like a true strategist. His mindset was all business, calm, focused, and smart. He knew that the biggest mistake most people made in that world was losing discipline and mixing pleasure with profit. While other crews were out showing off their money or causing unnecessary drama, Mob Boss kept things professional, moving more like a CEO than a street hustler. He started investing in real estate, using properties across South Memphis as safe meeting spots and legitimate business fronts. He even built real companies that helped explain his income and created jobs for the people around him. Most importantly, he understood that staying successful meant keeping a low profile, staying out of sight while the money kept coming in. But Mob Boss's story took a serious turn in 2004 when his name got linked to one of Memphis's most talked about criminal cases. Rebecca Glenn, a 24-year-old radio DJ for Q1075, was tragically found passed out in her apartment. The man identified as the main suspect was Stanley Andrews, but according to police reports, Mob Boss was later charged as an accessory after the fact. Here's where things take a shocking twist. Word around Memphis was that Rebecca had been given heavy radio play to Yo Gotti's tracks, but allegedly refusing to spend music from Mob Boss or any of his mob ties artists. Back then, radio airplay meant everything in the Memphis music scene. It could be the difference between being a local talent hustling for recognition and becoming a real money-making artist with citywide buzz. Rumors started flying that Mob Boss was furious about the lack of support. Some even whispered that he wanted to send a message over the disrespect, though none of that was ever proven in court. What's confirmed, however, is that after Rebecca's tragic passing, Mob Boss and a woman named Marquita Thomas were caught using the victim's credit cards and selling her stolen belongings, a move that sent shockwaves across the city. Even the suspect's own family was stunned. Stanley Andrews' sister told Action News 5 that her brother had called her from jail, saying that Rebecca had gotten upset when he knocked on the door and that he just lost control. But police said Andrews showed no remorse and acted like he knew exactly what he was doing from the start. Investigators revealed that Andrews had slipped past security guards at the apartment complex and started knocking on random doors in the building. When Rebecca opened hers, things took a horrifying turn. He forced his way inside and took her life before stealing from her home. It was one of the most disturbing crimes Memphis has seen in years. That light sentence should have been a wake-up call, but for a man like Mob Boss, the pull of the streets was just too strong to walk away from. The Rebecca Glenn case didn't just make headlines, it exposed how deep the connection ran between Memphis's booming music scene and its darker street ties. Back then, radio DJs had real influence. They decided which artists got their songs played, and that kind of power could easily create tension when someone felt disrespected or overlooked. By 2007, Mob Boss was back in motion, but this time he had leveled up.
He was running a tightly organized operation out of an apartment at 784 Porter Street in Memphis, a spot that looked abandoned to anyone passing by, but inside, it was a fully functional hub for his team's street activities. That location wasn't chosen by accident either. Porter Street was a dead-end road in a quiet area where the police didn't patrol often and most residents kept to themselves. The building looked old, worn down, and completely empty, which was exactly how my boss wanted it. It blended in perfectly with the surroundings, making it the last place anyone would think to look for organized action. But the Memphis Police Department had been paying close attention for months. Detectives kept tabs on who came and went, watching traffic patterns, collecting footage, and piecing together a bigger picture. Detective Kittrell Robinson later testified about how detailed their surveillance operation was, a full-scale investigation built to track every move before they finally stepped in with official search warrants. Detectives documented a steady flow of traffic day and night. Cars would pull up, someone would go inside for just a few minutes, then drive off, over and over again. The pattern looked like something far beyond small-time street business. This was clearly a large-scale setup running with precision. Picture the scene. Officers finally move in, bust through the front door, and instantly chaos breaks loose. My boss's cousin, Rico Johnson, tries to sprint from apartment 4 to apartment 3 as glass shatters as someone dives out the kitchen window trying to get away. But what really shocked everyone was what came next. A massive 75-pound pit bull charged out from around the corner, heading straight toward the offices. Detective Robinson had no choice but to protect himself and his team, firing 3 times until the dog backed off into the kitchen. That pit bull wasn't just a pet, it was part of the house's layered security system. In that world, dogs were used to guard against break-ins, alert for incoming raids, and even protect key areas of the house. The fact that this dog reacted so fiercely showed just how well trained it was for protection. When the dust settled and the smoke cleared, police uncovered the full operation inside. They found a stash of controlled substances, multiple pounds of high-grade product, digital scales on the counter, and measuring cups sitting right by the stove. All signs of a business running with organization and serious intent. Police found a Smith & Wesson on the couch and $10,000 in cash tucked right into my boss's pocket. This was no small-time hustle. It was a fully organized setup built to move product, handle money, and keep operations tight. Everything inside that apartment screamed professional. The tools, the layout, the precision. This was a system designed by someone who knew exactly what they were doing. They discovered commercial-grade digital scales, the kind used to weigh bulk quantities with accuracy, along with cooking gear and measuring cups that hinted at large-scale production. Investigators realized this wasn't some messy amateur scene. It was a well-managed network handling serious distribution across multiple levels of the market. From local customers to bigger buyers, my boss had it mapped out like a true businessman. That $10,000 found on him was just a pocket change. Investigators believe far larger sums were being moved through hidden channels they could never fully trace. The apartment itself was built like a mini fortress. Multiple exit routes, reinforced doors, and security cameras placed perfectly to watch every car or person that came near the property. Everything about it showed careful planning, knowledge of law enforcement tactics, and a deep understanding of how to stay one step ahead. While my boss's name was all over the headlines for his legal run-ins, Pooh Shiesty's mother wasn't just sitting back quietly either. She had her own respect in the community, known for handling her business and keeping her family strong through all the chaos. She was a boss in her own right, respected, sharp, and built for the life she lived. The streets of Memphis don't respect weakness, and any woman standing beside a man like my boss had to prove she could handle the pressure that came with that spot. She wasn't just along for the ride, she understood the lifestyle, the risks, and the code that ruled their world. For her, family loyalty wasn't optional, it was everything. Growing up in South Memphis, she had already seen what could happen to women who didn't stand strong. She'd watched some lose their families to the streets, seen wives get disrespected when their men got locked up, and families crumble under the weight of struggle and separation. but she made herself a promise that was never going to be her story. When my boss was facing serious legal trouble, she was the one who kept everything from falling apart. She managed the money, kept the household steady, and made sure the right connections stayed loyal. While he was fighting his case, she protected both their image and their operation, a balancing act that took brains, patience, and serious street sense. At the same time, she had another mission, protecting her kids. Young Pooh Shiesty was paying attention to everything her parents moved, how they handled pressure, and what loyalty really looked like. Every move her mother made became a lesson in survival, in respect, and in how to carry the family name with pride. When my boss got locked up, she made sure his name never lost power in the streets. She kept everything running smoothly, reminding everyone that their family and their organization was still solid, still respected, still not the type to be played with. She had to make tough decisions that most people couldn't even imagine, choices that carried serious weight and real consequences.
Her impact on Pooh Shiesty can't be overstated. While my boss taught him how to think like a businessman and move strategically, his mother taught him how to survive. She showed him the meaning of loyalty, resilience, and strength, how to stay firm even when life tries to crush you. Her lessons weren't just about toughness, they were about balance, knowing when to fight, when to stay silent, and when to move smart. Even while managing everything around her, she never let education or opportunity fall off the table. She made sure Pooh Shiesty stayed in school and understood that the streets were never supposed to be the finish line, just one step in a much bigger journey. She believed in using the hustle to build something real, something that could last beyond the chaos. The respect she earned in Memphis didn't come easy. It was built through years of standing tall in moments where one wrong move could have cost her everything. She maneuvered through federal heat, rival groups, and internal drama, all while keeping her family safe and their legacy strong. But before we get into Pooh Shiesty's rise, we have to talk about the family's biggest heartbreak, the loss of TDP, Pooh's older brother. He wasn't just family, he was a mentor, an example, and the one who taught Pooh what it truly meant to carry the Williams name. He had that natural charisma, confidence, and street smarts that ran deep in the Williams bloodline, and everyone around him could tell he was destined for greatness. Unlike most young men in the neighborhood, TDP had a rare balance of respect from the streets and a sharp business mindset that could have taken him to incredible heights. He was the link between my boss's old school way of running things and the new generation's forward-thinking hustle. While his father built his empire through traditional street operations and territorial influence, TDP was already thinking ahead. He knew the real power was in diversification, turning music, business, and branding into real money that couldn't be taken away. He wanted to build generational wealth, something that could keep the Williams name strong for decades to come. TDP also played a big role in the early stages of Chopper Gang's development. He helped design strategies, guided how they expanded their influence, and acted as a mentor to the younger members who looked up to him like a big brother. His leadership, focus, and calm under pressure made him one of the most respected figures around, someone who didn't just talk about success, but lived it. But life in Memphis has a way of throwing unexpected challenges, and TDP's story took a heartbreaking turn when he was diagnosed with brain cancer. This wasn't the kind of battle that could be fought with power or street smarts. It required a whole different type of strength. The diagnosis came out of nowhere. The family came together stronger than ever, praying for a miracle and holding on to every bit of hope they could find. They called in the best doctors money could get, tried new treatments, and explored every possible option, anything that might give them more time with TDP. Pooh Shiesty watched his big brother, his hero, fighting a battle that no amount of street power or money could win, and it changed him forever. For someone raised to believe that strength and success could fix anything, this was a painful reality check. The medical bills piled up fast. Even for a family with deep pockets, the costs were overwhelming. The treatments meant constant travel to specialized facilities, experimental medicines that insurance wouldn't cover, and 24-hour care that drained their money and their spirits. Meanwhile, Pooh Shiesty's music career was finally starting to take off. His early tracks were buzzing in Memphis and beyond, but the excitement was bittersweet. Every time you hit a new milestone, that success came with a heavy heart, knowing that TDP might not be there to celebrate with him. The family was fighting two battles at once,
chasing dreams while watching one of their strongest fade away. In January 2021, tragedy struck when TDP lost his fight. The loss shattered something deep inside Pooh Shiesty. You could feel it in his music, especially in his raw track No Chorus, where he raps, "On God, I shed a tear every time I think about TDP, but no, I won't display my feelings. That's another side of me." That line hits hard. You can hear the pain in every word. TDP passed away right in the middle of Pooh Shiesty's heated tension with EBG, and his rivals wasted no time trying to use his brother's death for clout in their diss tracks. EBG E Dizzle even dropped a track called Paralyzed right after TDP's passing, throwing shots and telling Pooh Shiesty he needed to go pray for his brother. That kind of disrespect, especially during a moment of deep grief, showed Pooh exactly what kind of energy he was up against. That moment changed him forever. The pain didn't just hit him emotionally, it hardened him. It built a wall around his heart that would influence every move he made after that. Losing TDP wasn't just a personal tragedy, it became a turning point that fueled his mindset towards anyone who dared to disrespect his family's loss. Born on November 8, 1999, Trell Williams Jr., better known as Pooh Shiesty, entered a world where survival was a full-time job. Violence wasn't just around him, it was part of the reality he grew up in. By the time he was only 4 years old, his father was already facing serious charges. By age 7, my boss was dealing with federal raids and time behind bars. That kind of upbringing doesn't just teach lessons, it molds a person. While other kids were focused on schoolwork or video games, young Pooh was already caught up in situations that forced him to grow up fast. That year, he got hit with his first robbery charge. Not some random reckless act, but something that stemmed from tension and family loyalty. It was planned out and aimed at someone who had crossed the line with his people.
Even at that age, Pooh understood one thing clearly. In his world, disrespect couldn't just slide. That same year, he got expelled from middle school for bringing a firearm to campus. But for him, it wasn't about showing off or trying to be tough. It was about staying safe. Word had gotten around that older kids connected to families who didn't get along with the Williams crew had made threats. Pooh wasn't taking chances. This wasn't about rebellion, it was survival. While most 11-year-olds were being told to stay out of trouble, he was learning how to navigate it. In most places, seeing a kid carrying protection would be seen as heartbreaking, but in South Memphis, it was sadly viewed as part of being ready for what could come your way. Pooh Shiesty once said that in Memphis, you're almost guaranteed to lose at least one close friend before you turn 15. That wasn't an exaggeration. It was the heartbreaking reality for most kids growing up there. In his city, survival came with loss, and everyone knew it. By 14, Pooh had already faced another serious situation, an assault case that was sealed because of his age. But word around the city was that he had stepped up to defend his father's name while my boss was still locked up. The message was loud and clear. Even with his dad behind bars, the Williams family still demanded respect, and Pooh was ready to make sure nobody forgot that. When he entered Central High, things got even more intense. For the first time, he had to interact with students from all over the city, kids from neighborhoods that didn't always get along. In Memphis, railroad tracks didn't just divide land, they divided territories. And when those invisible borders got crossed in school, things could go from calm to chaotic real fast. That's when Pooh Shiesty and his childhood friend Big 30 decided to create something of their own, Chopper Gang. But don't get it twisted, this wasn't just a rap group or a clique trying to look tough. Chopper Gang was a real movement, a young, ambitious crew built around loyalty, hustle, and shared goals. They wanted to control their own destiny, make money, and build something powerful, their own empire from the ground up. As Pooh Shiesty later explained, they weren't trying to follow the old ways, they were the new wave. Chopper Gang represented a fresh generation of street politics in Memphis, unlike the older sets that were tied to strict territories or national affiliations. This new group was built around personal bonds and ambition. They handpicked the sharpest, most determined young men from across South Memphis, guys who had drive, confidence, and strategy.
By the time Pooh Shiesty finished high school, Chopper Gang was already making serious money through underground hustle and street-level operations. They weren't just kids hanging on corners, they were running organized moves that took real planning, teamwork, and strategy. Pooh had learned from watching Mob Boss, and he brought that same calculated mindset to his own crew. Their first major breakthrough came from targeting rival crews operating in areas they considered their territory. Pooh understood something key. In the streets, not everyone could turn to the police when things went bad. That gave them an edge. Chopper Gang would spend weeks studying their competition, watching routines, noting weak spots, and setting up moves with the kind of precision that looked straight out of a strategy playbook. The money was rolling in, but it came with pressure. Every success brought new problems, more attention from rivals who wanted revenge, and more eyes from law enforcement trying to figure out who was really behind these operations. Every dollar they made had to be defended, not just through muscle, but through smart decision-making and careful control of their image. It was during this time that Pooh Shiesty started building the street reputation that would later become the foundation of his music. His lyrics weren't made-up stories. They came from real lessons, real moments, and real survival instincts that shaped who he was. When he talked about staying alert, protecting his crew, and being ready for whatever came his way, it wasn't for show, it was his reality. The streets had taught him that respect comes from actions, not talk. He learned early that loyalty meant more than money, and that showing weakness, even for a second, could cost you everything. Those lessons made him sharper, more focused, and they prepared him for the cutthroat music business. But that same mindset also brought a whole new level of problems, ones that fame and money couldn't fix. The tension between Pooh Shiesty's Chopper Gang and EBG, Everybody Gangsta, wasn't some petty online beef or rap gimmick. It was real. Both crews came out of Memphis, but from opposite sides of the city, and that mattered. In Memphis, geography is identity, and the divide between North and South Memphis has always run deep. EBG was rooted in North Memphis, while Chopper Gang repped the South. The city's railroad tracks literally split these two worlds, and those tracks weren't just concrete and steel. They were invisible battle lines drawn by generations before them.
This rivalry wasn't about music, it was history repeating itself. Before any of them picked up a mic, the two sides had already been on opposite ends of a long-standing power struggle that went back decades. The conflict originally stemmed from territory and control, who could operate where, who controlled which corners, and who had the right to tax independent hustlers trying to move in on established zones. EBG had built a serious name for themselves in North Memphis, blending street power with business smarts. They held down several major corners, had strong connections to top suppliers, and kept their crew in line through loyalty, discipline, and a reputation that demanded respect. For years, they were seen as one of the city's most solid forces, until Chopper Gang came along and changed the game. Chopper Gang represented a new wave, a younger, hungrier generation that didn't care about the old rules or traditional boundaries. They weren't about waiting their turn or staying boxed into one part of the city. Their mindset was simple. The money's out there for whoever's bold and strategic enough to take it, no matter where you're from or who thinks they control the area. That attitude led to a major turning point between the two sides. Word around Memphis was that Pooh Shiesty and his crew decided to make a move on EBG's territory, allegedly robbing them for firearms and cash. It wasn't just about money. It was about sending a message, letting EB know that Chopper Gang could step into their zone whenever they wanted. According to several local sources, the move was carefully planned. Chopper Gang supposedly spent weeks scouting EBG's main spot, learning the guard schedules, spotting weak points, and mapping out exit routes in case things got messy. This wasn't random. It was detailed, patient, and organized. When the day came, they moved fast and clean. The whole thing went down with near military precision, tight communication, quick action, and zero hesitation. Within minutes, the team had taken control, secured what they came for, and disappeared before EBG could react. The message was loud and clear. The old street rules didn't mean anything anymore, and Chopper Gang was showing they would take what they wanted whenever they wanted.
When Pooh Shiesty dropped his breakout hit with Lil Durk called Back in Blood, he made that message public with one bold line: "Yeah, you know who took that from you. Come get it back in blood." To most listeners, it sounded like typical rap talk, tough lyrics, confidence, and energy. But to those in Memphis who knew the real story, especially EBG, that bar hit way too close to home. They knew exactly what Shiesty was referencing, and there was no way they were gonna let that slide. The track exploded. Back in Blood became an anthem, peaking at number 13 on the Billboard Hot 100 and racking up hundreds of millions of streams worldwide. But the success came with a sting. For EBG, it wasn't just a hit record, it was a public embarrassment. Every stream, every repost, every crowd singing along felt like the world was laughing at their loss. That kind of public attention forced EBG's hand. EB Grizzle, who wasn't even a rapper like that, decided to step up and respond. He dropped a remix to Back in Blood, flipping the track to tell his side of the story. In his version, he claimed Pooh Shiesty was stretching the truth, saying the robbery wasn't nearly as big as the song made it sound. Grizzle said the crew had only lost a small stash and a few firearms, and that nobody was even home when it went down. He painted Shiesty as someone trying to build a legend off of small wins, turning street talk into global fame. But Pooh Shiesty wasn't the type to stay quiet. He fired back on social media, making it clear that EBG had just made their biggest mistake. He laughed off the remix, bragged about how his song hit 18 million views without him even naming names, and warned them that by speaking up, they had officially stepped into something much bigger than music. The tension hit its peak when EBG Grizzle was reportedly shot 3 times in the arm, just days after releasing his second diss track aimed at Pooh Shiesty. Rumors spread fast across Memphis, and Shiesty jumped on social media right after, dropping cryptic posts like, "Damn, that dude dissed, now he can't even walk, and I don't even think bro talking." The shooting happened in broad daylight, right on a busy street in North Memphis. According to witnesses, Grizzle was heading to his car when another vehicle pulled up beside him and opened fire. The shooter was masked and took off immediately after, leaving the scene in chaos. Nobody needed to say it out loud. The message was clear. Chopper Gang came with consequences for disrespecting them. Grizzle survived the attack and came back swinging with another diss track titled Paralyzed. In the song, he claimed that whoever shot him had a clear shot at his face, but aimed for his arm instead, implying that the shooting wasn't meant to end his life, just to send a warning. It was a chilling response that showed how deep the rivalry had gotten. The ongoing feud created an atmosphere of tension throughout the city. Both sides moved carefully, constantly watching their backs, knowing that any wrong step or public appearance could lead to another dangerous encounter. It wasn't just two groups anymore. Other crews across Memphis started picking sides, turning what began as a two-way beef into a citywide power struggle. Even before things got that extreme, Pooh Shiesty already had a reputation for never backing down from anyone. He made it known that he didn't tolerate disrespect from other Memphis rappers, no matter how big they were. One of his earliest rivalries sparked with Big Boogie, an artist signed to CMG label. In most cities, a rapper saying they're better than another would just be friendly competition. But in Memphis, that kind of talk is taken as a direct challenge. When Big Boogie made that comment about being a better rapper than Pooh Shiesty, it wasn't brushed off. At that time, Pooh was just starting to get national recognition. His songs were buzzing heavy in the South, but he hadn't yet hit full mainstream fame. So when an already established artist like Big Boogie publicly dismissed him, it looked like an attempt to block his rise and keep him from climbing higher. Pooh and his Day One Big 30 didn't take that lightly. They jumped on to Big Boogie's Instagram live session and called him out right there in front of everyone. The exchange got heated fast, with Pooh claiming that when he actually pulled up to Big Boogie's area, Big Boogie didn't want any smoke and ran off before anything could go down. According to Pooh's version of events, he had gone straight to Frazier, Big Boogie's area in North Memphis, looking for a real face-to-face talk. He said Boogie saw them pulling up and decided to dip before they could even speak. From Pooh's point of view, that said everything, that Boogie was all talk, no action. Big Boogie, on the other hand, denied the whole story. He went online saying he'd never even met Pooh Shiesty in person and didn't understand where all the tension came from. He insisted there wasn't really any issue, claiming the whole situation was being exaggerated and blown up by fans and social media. But Pooh wasn't done. To make his point even clearer, he launched his own weed brand
and named it Red Rum, the exact same name as Big Boogie's crew. That move wasn't just business, it was personal. It was his way of flipping the name into his own brand and turning the tables completely. In Memphis culture, that type of move isn't subtle. It's a bold statement that everyone understands instantly.
This was next-level pettiness, the kind that showed just how seriously Pooh Shiesty took any form of disrespect. His new Red Rum weed strain came packaged with designs that poked fun at Big Boogie and his crew, and Pooh made sure the whole world saw it. He promoted it non-stop on social media, turning every sale into a public reminder of their rivalry. For his fans, buying that strain wasn't just about the product. It was about choosing sides in one of Memphis's most talked about feuds. But things took a dark and tragic turn on July 12, 2020, when Big Boogie was performing at a concert in Como, Mississippi. In the middle of his set, chaos broke out. Gunfire erupted, with over 50 rounds fired from multiple weapons. The scene turned into panic as the crowd scattered in every direction. Big Boogie made it out unharmed, but 2 innocent lives were lost that night. 19-year-old Jasmine Bradshaw and 37-year-old LV Will. Investigators quickly realized this wasn't random. The number of shots and the coordination suggested multiple shooters, a planned and targeted attack. Someone had clearly come to that event with bad intentions, and the aftermath left the entire Southern rap scene in shock. What made it even more heartbreaking was that Jasmine Bradshaw, one of the victims, was reportedly Big Boogie's pregnant girlfriend. She had been on stage with him when the shooting started, caught in the chaos just feet away from the spotlight. The fact that she was expectant made the tragedy hit even harder. A moment that should have been about celebration turned into one of unbearable loss. Naturally, speculation went wild. Many started whispering that the shooting might have been connected to Boogie's ongoing tension with Pooh Shiesty. The timing, the build-up, it all seemed too close to ignore. But Pooh quickly went live on Instagram, firmly denying any involvement. He said straight up that their issues were never that serious and that he had nothing to do with what happened. The message that spread through Memphis after that tragedy was loud and clear. Getting into it with Pooh Shiesty wasn't something to take lightly. His public denial of involvement was quick and calculated, but not everyone was convinced. The timing, just weeks after his and Big Boogie's heated exchange, made it hard for people to believe it was all a coincidence. Still, without solid evidence connecting Shiesty to the incident, law enforcement couldn't move forward with any charges. The whole situation shined a harsh light on how easily rap competition can cross over into something far more dangerous. What starts as simple lyrical back and forth can quickly turn into real-life conflict, especially when the people behind the music actually come from the environments they're rapping about. When pride, loyalty, and reputation mix with real street ties, things can escalate faster than anyone expects. But for Pooh Shiesty, music was never about chasing fame or trying to impress the industry. It was another form of hustle, another way to keep money flowing and his team moving forward. His passion for rapping started naturally, long before the spotlight ever found him. His first recorded verse dropped in 2018 on Big 3's track Breaking News. Even though it was an early release, it was enough to make people stop and pay attention. The song was recorded at a small Memphis studio, funded with money that Chopper Gang had earned from their own grind. The beat was simple, the mix wasn't perfect, but when Pooh's verse came in, everything changed. You could hear the rawness, the hunger, and the authenticity that would soon turn him into one of Memphis's hottest young voices. His flow was natural, his words carried real-life weight, and his delivery came with a kind of energy that couldn't be faked. Breaking News hit YouTube with almost no promo, no big budget, no fancy rollout, but the streets of Memphis picked up on it fast. Local DJs started spinning it in clubs and house parties. Rappers around the city began taking notice, and fans couldn't stop asking, who's that new kid with the raw voice? Then came his first official single, Hell Night, featuring Big 30, and that's when things really started to shift. Pooh Shiesty had officially found his sound, a dark, confident flow that captured the intensity of everything he'd lived through. The track's energy was pure Memphis grit, and the video, shot by SMB Films, took things to another level.
It racked up over 6 million views, making it clear that a new powerhouse was coming out of the South. The visuals made it even more personal. It was filmed in the same neighborhoods where Pooh grew up, right around the Cane Creek projects, the same blocks where he learned survival and built his name. You could see the realness in every shot, familiar faces, local streets, and raw energy that couldn't be replicated in a studio set. That authenticity was what set him apart. While plenty of rappers in Memphis used stories for entertainment, Pooh Shiesty wasn't acting. His lyrics reflected real experiences and emotions. That's why his songs hit so hard. They weren't made-up stories. They were pieces of his life turned into art. His confidence, pain, and pride all poured out through the mic, and people felt it instantly. But everything changed when he linked up with Lil Durk on Back in Blood. That track became the moment that turned Pooh Shiesty from a local star into a national name. It was recorded at Savage Inc. Studios in Atlanta, and the collaboration happened almost by chance. Pooh had already recorded his hook and verse, then ran over to another room where Durk was recording. Durk listened once, nodded, and in just 5 minutes, dropped his verse like he'd been part of the song from the start. Lil Durk's smooth, melodic flow blended perfectly with Pooh Shiesty's raw, aggressive delivery, creating the kind of balance that pulled in both the streets and the mainstream crowd. When Back in Blood dropped on November 6, 2020, it was the same day King Von was tragically killed in Atlanta. While the hip-hop world was mourning that loss, Back in Blood started its quiet climb up the charts, quickly turning into a massive anthem. It went on to peak at number 13 on the Billboard Hot 100 and number 6 on the Hot R&B and hip-hop songs, racking up hundreds of millions of streams across platforms. It was undeniable. Pooh Shiesty had arrived. The success opened every door imaginable. Record labels started calling non-stop. Promoters wanted him on every lineup, and some of the biggest names in rap were reaching out for collaborations. And what felt like a flash, the kid from Cane Creek Projects went from being a neighborhood name to one of hip-hop's most sought-after new stars. Out of all the offers, one label stood out immediately: Gucci Mane's 1017 Records. Gucci saw something in Pooh Shiesty that reminded him of his own come-up: authenticity, hunger, and that fearless Memphis energy that couldn't be faked. Gucci had always been known for spotting real talent early, especially artists who brought raw street stories with undeniable charisma. To him, Pooh Shiesty was the perfect match for the 1017 family, an artist who lived what he rapped and had the presence to take that reality to a global stage.
The signing came with a major partnership through Atlantic Records, giving Pooh access to the kind of machine most independent rappers could only dream about: professional marketing, world-class production, and a global platform. With the backing of 1017 and Atlantic, he suddenly had everything he needed to take his career to the next level. Pooh Shiesty didn't switch up his sound or change his image when the fame hit. He got paid millions to be the same person he'd always been. Success didn't water him down. It amplified everything that made him stand out in the first place. After years of grinding in the streets, he was finally seeing real money, the kind of cash he used to only dream about. His debut mixtape, Shiesty Season, proved he wasn't just a one-hit wonder. It debuted at number 3 on the Billboard 200, selling over 60,000 copies in his first week, a massive accomplishment for a newcomer from Memphis. Practically overnight, the kid from Cane Creek Projects was earning in a month what most people wouldn't see in their entire lives. The financial glow-up was wild. Pooh went from counting small stacks to stacking millions, from stressing over rent to signing checks for houses and luxury cars. He wasn't renting anymore. He was owning, investing, and moving smarter with every dollar. The transformation was dramatic, but it came with gratitude. He never forgot where he came from, and he made sure the people who helped him along the way were taken care of. One of the first things he did with his new fortune was look out for his family. He bought his parents a beautiful home, a safe, comfortable space where they could finally breathe easy, far from the chaos and danger of the streets that had defined so much of their past. For a family that had survived poverty, legal battles, and endless neighborhood tension, this moment wasn't just financial,
it was emotional. The house represented something bigger than success. It was peace of mind. Sitting in an upscale neighborhood far away from the projects, it came with high-end security, reinforced safety features, and multiple escape routes just in case. Because even in success, the Williams family never forgot a hard truth. Fame doesn't erase enemies, it just changes how they move. Gucci Mane's 1017 label gave Pooh Shiesty the platform and power to take his sound worldwide. But even as the fame grew, he never turned his back on his roots. One of his first moves after signing was to bring his cousin Big Scar into the game, helping him secure his own deal with 1017, even though Scar had almost no rap experience at the time. The move caught people off guard. Critics argued that Big Scar only got the opportunity because of family ties, not because of proven skill. But Pooh didn't care what the industry thought. He believed in loyalty over everything. For him, it was simple. Family comes first, and if he was winning, his people were gonna win with him too. With money now flowing like never before, Pooh started living the life he used to dream about. Luxury cars, designer fits, diamond-covered jewelry, and vacations that looked straight out of a movie. His Instagram became a highlight reel of success. Shots of shimmering chains, high-end watches, stacks of cash, and luxury whips lined up like trophies. He was showing the world that he made it. But with that level of visibility came new risks. The more wealth Pooh Shiesty showed, the more attention he attracted, not just from fans, but from people with bad intentions and from law enforcement keeping a close eye. In the street world, flashy success can easily make you a target. Some saw his lifestyle as motivation, others saw it as opportunity. His jewelry collection alone was worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. Custom chains, diamond-encrusted watches, and grills that cost more than most people's cars. They were symbols of success, but also walking advertisements for danger. Every time he stepped out wearing them, he had to move carefully because not everyone cheering for you wants to see you shine. McLarens, Lamborghinis, and other luxury rides worth more than most people's homes became regular stars in Pooh Shiesty's music videos and Instagram posts. His garage looked like a car show, a statement of how far he'd come. But driving that kind of machinery through Memphis came with real risks. Flashy cars attract attention, and in a city where envy runs deep, that kind of flex could make anyone a target for theft or worse. Still, Pooh refused to dim his shine. He had grown up with nothing. Now he had everything he'd once dreamed of, and he wasn't about to hide it. The money and the lifestyle meant more than just material things. They were proof that he'd broken free from the cycle of poverty and struggle that had trapped his family for generations. Every chain, every car, every post was his way of saying, "I made it out." But success in the spotlight comes with its own kind of pressure. The same streets that raised him were now watching closely to see whether fame would change him or whether he'd stay true to who he'd always been. The question wasn't if Pooh could make money. He'd already done that. The real question was whether he could keep it, protect it, and stay alive long enough to enjoy it. Even with millions in the bank and a career soaring higher every month, Pooh Shiesty still found himself pulled back toward the same world he came from. The mindset that once helped him survive in Memphis was now threatening to take everything away. The sellers were also expecting to collect some money that Pooh Shiesty owed him for renting the green McLaren he'd been driving. On paper, the meetup looked like just another quick business deal, simple, clean, and routine. Pooh wanted to grab a few pairs of high-end sneakers for an upcoming music video, and the sellers were known for having rare, authentic kicks that couldn't be found anywhere else. The marijuana was just an extra part of the exchange, a side deal to make the trip worth it. But something went sideways that day. According to police reports and statements from the victims, things took a sharp turn from business to chaos. Instead of completing the deal, the situation allegedly turned into an attempted robbery. What was supposed to be a smooth, friendly transaction suddenly became panic and gunfire. Surveillance footage later released by investigators showed the green McLaren pulling into the parking lot, followed closely by a Mercedes carrying the two sellers. At first, everything looked normal. People talking, checking out items, and moving casually. Then, in an instant, the calm broke. One of Pooh's associates reportedly pulled out a weapon, followed by another man with a handgun, and shots rang out. The video captured the chaos as both sellers were hit, one in the lower body, the other injured while trying to sprint back to his car. The shooting was over in seconds, but it left both victims wounded and terrified. Police said the quickness and coordination of the act showed that it wasn't random, it was planned and executed like a high-stakes ambush. When the scene cleared, the most damaging clue was what got left behind, a Louis Vuitton bag stuffed with more than $30,000 in cash. Investigators later matched the serial numbers on those bills to photos Pooh Shiesty had posted online, showing the exact same stacks of money right down to the details. The abandoned Louis Vuitton bag full of cash raised big questions. Investigators argued that if Pooh Shiesty really planned to rob the sellers, he wouldn't have brought $30,000 in cash to the scene. That detail made it look like something went wrong on the spot, a deal gone bad that spiraled out of control, leading to a split-second reckless decision instead of a planned setup.
But that wasn't the only time things took a dangerous turn for Pooh Shiesty. On May 30, 2021, he was at King of Diamonds, a famous strip club in Miami, when about $40,000 in cash reportedly slipped from his waistband and hit the floor. The moment the money dropped, the crowd lunged for it, and chaos broke out instantly. Witnesses said Pooh lost his temper when people began scooping up the cash. That moment exposed the dangerous collision between his old street mentality and his new life as a celebrity. In Pooh's mind, that money still belonged to him. It didn't matter that it was on the floor. To him, anyone trying to take it was crossing a serious line. That mindset, the instinct to protect what's his by any means, didn't fade just because fame came into the picture. Security stepped in to calm things down, trying to escort him out before things got worse, but Pooh wasn't backing off easily. Witnesses said the argument turned physical, and during the chaos, a gun went off, hitting a security guard in the leg. What started as a wild club misunderstanding instantly turned into a felony assault case. Dozens of witnesses were present that night, including other artists and their teams, and several people caught parts of the incident on their phones. The videos quickly surfaced online, giving law enforcement crystal clear evidence of what had happened inside the club. On July 7, 2020, Pooh Shiesty found himself facing new trouble, this time for allegedly firing a weapon from a moving vehicle at a gas station. Police reports claimed that a simple argument had turned into something much more dangerous when shots were fired. The situation showed a pattern that was becoming impossible to ignore. Even with more fame and money than he'd ever imagined, Pooh was still moving with the same instincts that had once helped him survive in the streets. He couldn't seem to separate Trell Williams Jr., the survivor from Memphis, from Pooh Shiesty, the rising rap star with the world at his feet. Every incident seemed to come from the same internal struggle, the belief that walking away from conflict meant weakness. In the streets, that mindset was necessary for survival, but in the industry, that same mentality could destroy everything he'd built. Ironically, Pooh Shiesty had already achieved everything he dreamed of: money, fame, respect, and the power to give his family a better life. But the same qualities that had made him unstoppable, his pride, loyalty, and unwillingness to back down, were now the same ones putting it all at risk. The Bay Harbor Islands case became the tipping point. What started as a simple deal spiraled into a major legal nightmare. The charges were serious: armed robbery with a firearm, aggravated battery, aggravated assault, and theft. These weren't small-time accusations. They carried heavy consequences, especially because they involved weapons. Since the case crossed state lines, with Pooh traveling from one state to another, it became a federal case, making the stakes even higher. Federal gun-related charges come with strict sentencing rules and far less room for leniency. Pooh was suddenly looking at a potential 20-year sentence if convicted on all counts. After months of back and forth in court, his team struck a plea deal. Instead of 2 decades behind bars, Pooh Shiesty agreed to serve 63 months, just over 5 years in federal prison. It was a huge drop from what it could have been, but it still marked a tragic turn for someone who had climbed so high so fast. Pooh Shiesty's defense attorney, Bradford Cohen, the same lawyer who had previously represented big names like Lil Wayne and Kodak Black, went all in to defend his client. Cohen focused on breaking down the credibility of the victims, pointing out inconsistencies in their statements and questioning their reliability as witnesses. He reminded the court that these men weren't exactly innocent. They were involved in illegal dealings themselves and had every reason to twist the story to protect their own interests. Cohen even suggested that the entire incident might have been a setup,
claiming the sellers might have been trying to rob Pooh, and the shooting may have happened in self-defense. The defense leaned heavily on one major detail: the $30,000 in cash that Pooh left behind at the scene. They argued that no one planning a robbery would show up with that kind of money in the first place. To them, that bag of cash proved this wasn't a planned heist. It was a deal going bad. But the prosecution had its own arsenal of evidence, and it was strong. Surveillance footage clearly captured the moment shots were fired, and social media posts directly linked Pooh to the money left behind. The digital trail was undeniable. After reviewing the case, his legal team realized the odds weren't in his favor. That's when they made the tough call, advising him to take a plea deal instead of risking a decades-long sentence. The judge initially granted Pooh Shiesty a $30,000 bond, which he posted right away. Within hours, he and his crew were seen boarding a private jet out of Florida, hoping to put the chaos behind him. But the peace didn't last long. When he was later tied to the King of Diamonds Club incident, everything came crashing down again. His bond was revoked, and Pooh was ordered to remain in jail until his trial wrapped up. The King of Diamonds case added another layer of pressure, making an already messy legal battle even more complicated. For a rising star at the top of his game, it was a harsh reminder that no matter how far you go, your past can still catch up if you're not careful. And that's where we'll leave it for now. The story of Pooh Shiesty, a Memphis talent whose real-life experiences became both his power and his downfall. What do you think about his journey? Redemption story or cautionary tale? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit that like, and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into hip-hop's most unbelievable real-life stories.